They told us femininity was divine. They promised grace, softness, and magic. They gave us candlelit bath rituals, Pinterest boards, and the promise of being chosen. That was the dream. But here's the thing. It wasn't made for the messy girls like us, or for the ones who ask too many questions, talk too loud, or hesitate to smile on command. It was built for the version of us that behaves, that floats, that doesn't challenge. The rules were wrapped in lace, with obedience stitched into every thread. And the rest of us? We've been burning scented candles just to make the cage smell nice. In this episode, we are peeling back the petals of divine femininity. We are tracing the silhouette of empowerment back to its source. And asking, is this a return to ourselves, or just the patriarchy in pearls? No wonder we feel pulled in two directions. No wonder we feel like we have to choose between softness and strength. No wonder divine starts to feel like a performance instead of a home. Welcome to No Wonder. Tonight's story is about the divine feminine and the scripts that were never meant to be followed.
Before we dive in, let me ask you this. Have you ever felt like feminism is this huge confusing topic where you don't really know where you fit? If this hits home, you're exactly in the right place. Hit subscribe so you don't miss another conversation where we break down those walls and we find our path together.
Tonight's topic, the divine feminine. You've seen it, whether on Instagram or Reels or TikToks, on late night scrolling sessions. But what is real? What is it really? Is it a trend? Is it the truth? Is it a Trojan horse? The most restrained definition that I found is it's an energy within everyone and everything, associated with compassion, nurture, intuition, forgiveness, and empathy. This sounds like something you would find in a love letter, not in a ledger. But don't be fooled. Just because this is soft-spoken, it doesn't mean that it isn't sharp. In the spirit of reclaiming old world spaces, like we're doing today, let's bring the divine feminine into the drawing room. Light the fire, pour the scotch, and settle in. We're about to dissect the velvet myth. This is No Wonder, and tonight, the Gentleman's Club is hers. So this is why today I wanted to explore with you the femininity and how it became a divine intuition and what actually is and if it is actually as empowering as it sounds. What I've done is that I've collected, as usual, a few articles on the topic that, of course, will be linked in the description below if you're interested. And I wanted to gauge a little bit the overall sentiment of the internet on the topic. Our first step is to define the archetypes. By archetypes, I mean what the divine feminine and masculine mean. So, the first article that I would like to mention to you is the feminist Data Mouse, explaining on the Medium Online that the divine femininity is frequently presented as an inherent spiritual power exclusive to women. It's often characterized by attributes like nurturance, patience, intuition, and passivity, among others. This quality, though valuable in themselves, are tied to biological sex, implying that all women should inherently possess them, and by extension, those who are lacking these qualities are lacking their womanhood. Put into simpler words, the divine femininity is suggested by traits of nurturing and intuition that are only inherent to women. The article continues. Furthermore, the concept tends to be promoted as a binary relation. The divine masculinity is the second option, and it encompasses traits like assertiveness, rationality, and activity. This dichotomy ignores the complexity of fluidity of the human behavior and identity, which is the first bit that I want to dissect today. So, wouldn't these gender roles just be an emphasis of another way of creating the dichotomy that we're really trying to fight when you're talking about gender roles? Is it just another way of recreating this gender binarity and these traditional gender roles in a spiritual context this time? A spiritual context that originally does not display it. Today, however, social media is praising the qualities of the divine feminine. and it's displaying them as the most effective way of enjoying one's quality of life. To find even the prince charming, they say. The implication of discouraging women from engaging in traditionally masculine behavior, such as taking the initiative, says Rachel Evans in the Michigan Daily, directly inhibits women from continuing on paths that put them in position of leadership and independence. So, they're telling me that living in my feminine is the best way of living and it's the only way that I can be chosen. However, I have to step down on leadership and independence that in the last decade or more than so, we have been fighting really hard to conquer. I feel like the girl boss that we've been listening a lot about is slowly dying on the inside. This is why I would like to mention to you a third article by Hemholthian on Digimedia, who quotes Niloufar Hardari's article on tradwives to explain how this idyllic total equality envisioned by the second wave of feminism has for many felt short-lived. We are overworked, underpaid, and all too often underappreciated, wondering what the point of it really is. Why not just give up and find a wealthy man and live a happy ever after? The girl boss is really dying inside. And this is the step in your feminine era that everybody is praising now, which is coming to a rescue to this tired, poor being that is being portrayed now. It promises happy and stable relationships by fitting the frame into the traditional feminine qualities. So here we have a situation of rescue. However, as Evans explains, when a woman must rely on their partner for income, an unbalanced power dynamic is created, and money can be used to manipulate the reliant individual. Even though it presents itself as a way for women to achieve happiness and peace, the feminine energy media has done the exact opposite of what feminism originally wanted to. So it seems to me that the boss bitch is taking a break. But at what price is it coming? As stated by Ardari on the tradwife that I just mentioned, this is both a symptom and a reaction to the growing insecurity of our times. We are blaming capitalism, not feminism, for this insecurity. The frequent media focuses on issues like abuse and erosion of women's rights, and this has fueled the revival of harmful and outdated gender roles. While the rise of the divine feminine might reflect frustration with modern feminism, however, the real problem here lies in the patriarchal system, not the feminism itself. So, we're seeing that this trend is now a reaction to the current struggles, the economic struggles that millennials and Gen Z are seeing. These type of struggles are primarily economical or social struggles. And on this, I wanted to suggest a book, if you're interested. I recently finished it, and it's called Can't Even by Anne-Helen Patterson. I will link it as well in the description if you're interested, and it explains how millennials and Gen Z are going to be the most burnt out generation. But let's not get lost here. What I was saying is that the feminist data mouse that I mentioned before concludes their article saying that the idea of divine feminine is a counterpart of the divine masculine, and by itself it does not need to be discarded, but it should be fundamentally reimagined. Because these two archetypes can serve as a basis for understanding and celebrating the diverse array of human qualities, but they should not be used to reinforce oppressive gender norms and stereotypes. How do we do this, though? A way to decouple traits like feminine and masculine from gender is to recognize that anyone can have these qualities, no matter the gender that they identify as. By doing this, we can embrace the spiritual depth of these qualities, but breaking down the harmful system that they support. However, this is not as simple as men and women are opposites, Emily McGowan explains in The Good Trade, the gender binary is a divisive and false tool. Instead, the existence of the divine feminine suggests that complementary energies exist within each being, represented by various symbols and figures. They don't have to be gendered. However, at this point of the conversation, I was asking myself, why do the gender terms exist though, if they're not inherently relying on the both of the two genders? So, still quoting Emily, the feminine and the masculine are not singular and silhouette energies. Instead, they exist in balance. For example, in ancient Chinese philosophy, yin and yang are a balance between receptive and productive, introspective and extrospective, feminine and masculine. But the two energies depend on one another. Note how the symbol of the yin and yang doesn't cut straight in the middle. The black and the white shapes swirls in and out of each other, in harmony, changing, flowing, and making room for every possible version of balance. So, having understood that the dichotomy between femininity and masculinity really doesn't work for us, it can actually harm us, I still have a doubt, because I don't know about you, but myself, I feel like I still am very drawn to the idea of the feminine energy and what it represents. So what should we do? If we still feel interested and drawn towards this energy, how can we actually make it work in an egalitarian and in traditional feminism, in a sense? So I referred back to Emily's example, and she explains that she is currently examining how the balance of the hidden and the visible are at play in her own life, especially with social media. Everything these days emphasizes the visible, what we wear, what we say, where do we go. But how are we cultivating the hidden? The visible is easier to mend and tend than the hidden. And many of us are neglecting the hidden as parts of ourselves. Emily says that she's also exploring how the divine feminine is beginning to rebalance in social and political spaces. For example, while we see a wave of women entering into the American political sphere, they are starting to represent an even larger force and rebalancing. Climate change, radical justice, and healthcare are among many feminine conversations on the national stage. Topics that focus on nurturing our planet and creating a balanced and supportive society, rather than restrictive rules and policies. So, I realized that this sounds very philosophical up until now. And I'm not going to apologize because this is important. However, I did want it to portray some practical guidance for you to follow. So, for this tangible input, I consulted Teal's One, who offers a thoughtful list of ways to reconnect with the divine feminine. First of all, she says you have to let yourself create. You have to get into any kind of art that you love. Painting, writing, sculpting, because creating can really spark energy. The next step is to really connect with other women. Spend time with other women. Look for healing and support. Sharing experiences can be extremely powerful. The third part is embrace your sensuality, because you have to surround yourself with things that you like and that they feel good. Think of a warm bubble bath, your favorite fragrances, or even just redecorating your space. I know I'm sounding really cliche, but I believe there's some truth into this. And another thing that she really explains is that you shouldn't shy away from exploring your sexuality, because this is a part of the journey. I'm going to give you an input here. Whether you want kids or not, think about how you feel about motherhood. And also think about your relationship with your mother. Healing any negative feelings here can really make a big difference. Look at also your cultural and familial views of womanhood. Think about what you were taught growing up. about being a woman. Figure out how it feels right to you to be a woman. It's okay to redefine roles for yourself if you need to. I want to warn you that it's necessary for you to trust your intuition in this journey. By listening to your guts and emotions, you have to be as receptive as you possibly can. Also, don't forget to practice love and compassion. This is always useful. Is being kind to yourself and others what's gonna make you more feminine, maybe? I'm not sure. But maybe just calling a friend to listen or treat yourself to something nice. Little acts of love can go a long way. You can try meditation as well to connect with your feminine energy. And at the end, you just need to find what works for you. A really important point that maybe not all of us are realizing that we have is resistance into being female. This needs to be released. Because noticing if you have any negative feelings about aspects of being a woman, like period or makeup or whatever you can think of, you need to let those go. You need to love your body, embrace your body, read up on your body, and start appreciating what makes you uniquely you. So, all of these wonderful steps that sounds really, really cool and Instagrammy are just little tiles of the journey of finding what really works for you. You could also apply none of these steps that I just said and still finding a way to healing your inner self. Because there's no right or wrong way of doing things and reconnecting with your energy. You just need to go with the flow and see wherever it takes you. As you may have noticed, the truth about Divine Feminine is that the journey is only about you. It's about self-discovery and self-expression and about pleasure and healing. However, I don't know if you realized it, but reconnecting with your energy strategies often sounds very similar to the Divine Feminine that we just detailed as toxic. So question, how do I know the suggestions that I'm following that are actually empowering and are not tearing me down? The most reliable way that I found to distinguish among suggestions is to pinpoint the ultimate goal that they aim to achieve. If the idea behind is to attract someone, please someone, find someone other than yourself, please run away. These are the advice that you stay away from, or at least take with a grain of salt. Because no one that truly cares about you would tell you to radically change yourself in order to find someone else. Especially if we're talking about your core essence or a so-called soulmate. So, as we have explored today, the concept of divine femininity is multifaceted and complex. While it celebrates quality like compassion, intuition, nurturing, blah, 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 we mentioned so many times, these traits are importantly to be remembered that they are not exclusive to women. By recognize that anyone can display such qualities regardless of their gender, we can finally begin to dismantle these toxic archetypes that have been spread around. Because they are restrictive stereotypes and oppressive structures that often are tied to traditional gender roles that, as my understanding, is what we're trying to go away from. Connecting with your divine feminine energy is deeply a personal journey. It's about self-discovery, as I mentioned, self-expression, pleasure and healing. Whether it's through creative pursuits, forming supportive communities, embracing your sensuality, or healing your relationships, the goal is to find what resonates with you and enhances only your life.
If today's talk hit something inside, then that's exactly why you should subscribe. Every episode is here to support you, unfiltered, real, and raw. And if you know someone who's on the same path, you should share this episode with them, because from now on, they no longer have to figure this out alone.
So what we have really uncorked tonight, behind the velvet curtain of divine femininity lies a tangled dance. part liberation, part illusion, part Instagram filter. It's seductive, sure, it's soft-lit, drenched in rose oil and whispered promises. But if the goal is just to be chosen, adored for being chosen, darling, this is not divinity, it's just good branding. The real empowerment does not come from trading your ambition for affirmation, your spine for a scented candle. It comes from knowing which part of the myth to burn and which to write with your own ink. The drawing room lights are dimming tonight, but the conversation doesn't stop here. This is no wonder. As we ask the inconvenient questions, we toast to the truth, even if it's wearing pearls and a red lipstick. Until next time, but keep your fire lit, your standards high, and your energy sovereign. Good night.